This is going to be a day of learning a lot. And one thing that I've just learned is a term I've never heard before. And thanks to Ineza Umuhoza Grace, who our sister from Rwanda. Karibu sana Nairobi.
Asante Santa.
She's caught on to some Swahili.
Oh yeah, she has.
You interacted, I believe, even with the group of youth over the weekend, Abigail?
Yes.
How
yes,
was
I
that? And what was the importance of that preceding the Africa Climate Summit today?
I think it would be really important to note that initially we weren't really part of the plan. So we've fought our way to actually host the Africa Youth Climate Assembly. Because initially I think we're supposed to be given a space for a concert, but then we were like, no, we have things that we want to say. We have issues we want to bring to the table. And so it has been such a difficult journey, but we managed to host it. And we managed to bring a number of youth from across Africa for 3 days here at KICC. And we only concluded yesterday submitting the Africa Youth Climate Declaration. And of course, it still has some tweaking that needs to happen, of course, from Ineza's comments.
You've given us a good background and context that you actually forced it into this.
Yes, we
and
did.
And we want to thank you because you're making history. In your experience representing the youth, do you feel they were well accommodated so far?
It will depend on which angle you are looking at, because starting from what Abigail said, we fought. Youth shouldn't be fighting to have a space to express ourselves and express our need.
Yeah.
And it's a very unfortunate that a lot of time when people are having events or negotiation process and they want to include youth, they always think us that it's going to be fun. Let's bring an artist, let's do some music. But as Abigail said, we have something to say. Yeah. Because when you talk about climate change, we are the generation that is left with a lot of burden, and we don't have, the opportunity to dream that is going to be something that's going to happen in the future. Yeah. We are living it, and we can feel the pain of not taking action. But the issue is that the people who are supposed to be leading us in taking concrete action, especially young people, are constantly giving us fake promises, empty baggage, and they just think that we are going to be in accepting mode on the lower estimate they're giving us. That's why we fight, because we know what we want and we know how to get it. And as my mentor like to say, is like we fight to get a seat on the table, and if we don't, we create our own table, then we invite you to it. And I think that's
exactly what we did.
Ineza, Al-Keblan eco-feminist.
Yes.
Which dictionary did you get that from? What is that? How do you plug into this conversation?
I grew up having my mom as my model. Not only because she's amazing, because I believe everyone's mother is really amazing, but from the fact that she fought for her education in a country or a community that was really pushing women to be caregivers and mothers alone. But then growing up, I just realized that she fought for her education in a household that was really, welcoming. And then when I started to learn about climate change, I realized that a lot of time women are vulnerable because we are the front line, women, young girls. But the narrative is always putting us to be in a blaming situation. But I come from Rwanda, a country where women are encouraged to take the lead and encouraged to take action. And that's where I was like, if I'm going to be in this sector, I want to be a feminist, having that feminist energy, because I believe that women are taking the action today and they're able to lead the community from a certain point to another. And from the session I was into a few hours ago, there was this quote that I'm going to be using, that when you have women at the decision-making table, they are more likely to take climate-friendly decisions. And that's something that I'm going to be taking. And for the eco part, is because I believe that whatever harm we did to our planet, whatever thing we did, because climate change is a human-made scenario that we are living. So we are able to restore. We are able to create a better future for my kids, your kids, and their kids. and that's the eco-feminist part. And the alkebulan is just for Africa, because I'm from Africa. Africa is rising. Africa voices are no longer going to be left out. We have our own narrative. We're going to fight for it. And Africa is the home of Grand Solution. And Africa original name was alkebulan. So that's
Alkebulan, that's the next name if we're blessed with another child. Abigail?
So you have spoken very beautifully about Africa, and of course, you have also spoken about the position of youth. And we just had a chat with Fadel Kabub, and he was talking about reparations. And when I say reparations, the first person that comes to mind is Ineza because of loss and damage. And I want you to explain to us in a very layman way on what loss and damage is and what that means for Africa, and what exactly we're calling for, even with the loss and damage campaign that you have with the Loss and Damage Youth Coalition.
Oh, yes. Thanks. I will try to make it short. How many hours do I have?
Make it brief.
You can want to be brief, but
Make it brief. Make it brief.
I will use like an example of what happened in my country in May to explain what is loss and damage. So loss and damage are the limits to adaptation, climate impacts that are upon a community that did less, and it all happened in a quicker way that the community had no other way to respond. So in Rwanda, we had an intensive rainfall for 3 days, and our country lost like 1% of its GDP in just 3 days. So that is a cost of a loss and damage event. And then when you go to the international level or process of dealing with the climate crisis, there's no mechanism that is available to help countries like Rwanda to be able to cope with these emerging needs at a quicker rate. So that's why we are fighting for loss and damage finance, because we want to ensure that countries who did less are having a justifiable way to address or take action to address loss and damage in their own community. Because it's for Africa, for example, we are responsible, I think if I'm not mistaken, for 4% of the global emission. But yet we are home of the most vulnerable community. Even if I don't like to use that terminology, but it's scientifically proven. So we want to fight for changing the narrative, because the community that have been on the front line since 1992, when the UNFCCC was created, because it was well known that the crisis is going to happen, but the world they didn't take it seriously. I like to use the word. They didn't take it seriously until COP27 in Egypt, when they were like, oh, something is really happening, so let's do something, take the decision. And the decision they took was to establish a fund, and it's funding arrangement, but yet they are still not having a common understanding what is action to address loss and damage. Because when we talk about action to address loss and damage, we are not talking about mitigation. We don't want to talk about adaptation. We want to talk the real life, the experience and the impact that is upon our community. And we know where the gaps are, because if an event is happening, we know what the humanitarian aid won't be able to do. We know what the migration or displacement modality risk or disaster risk reduction won't be able to do. So we want to tap into the gap. And this time we have the opportunity to create a better fund in our side, because we are able to create it, because other financial mechanisms that is existing for climate, we were not there.
Yeah.
I mean, we find it was already there, but this one, we are going to be in and out, trying to craft every single detail of it to make sure that it's going to be operating for us, because we don't want another fake promises that at the end is going to be looking for funding a certain part of the world and not the others, and certainly not funding any mitigation or adaptation, because that's the limit to adaptation, or the limit of finance for adaptation that is existing, is what is causing us to be living the way we're living right now.
Yeah.
Inez, the last question. Do youth care about the climate issues and future? And are you walking out of this happy, content that in that declaration you are represented?
So I'll start with the first one. Yes, youth, I think for me, I speak for my behalf, I think we do care about climate. Because I cannot dream about having, a big farm, and I'm gonna be like a big farmer business person if I'm not talking about climate change. I cannot dream about having real estate businesses if I'm not going to be a climate smart one. So climate is the center of everything that we are, even education. So because it took long for the past generation to take action, Now climate change is interlinked with so many factors, even gender equality. So that's why we have to care, and we do care. That's why we are here, because we want to ensure that each opportunity that is gonna be there, we're gonna have a space to express our frustration, but also importantly our sense of hope, because we are approaching this with the sense that there's something that we can do, and there's something that we're willing to do. Just take a risk and invest in us, because we know the way things should be done. And for the declaration, I think it's a good opportunity, because, to be honest, this is my first time attending an African climate week. Yeah, it's the first one. And for me, when I saw on different social media what the declaration is having, I kind of had like this feeling that it could have been more, because it could have also been an opportunity to showcase how African young person are leading the change,
Yeah.
even if in a civil society, in businesses, in renewable energy, we are doing something, and that should be like the baseline to inform our policymakers, our government on how things should be done on a larger scale. Yes.
Asante sana
Nzuri
and
sana.
karibu tena Nairobi.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ineza, Umuhoza, Grace, and eco-feminist Al-Kuban?
Al-Kebulan.
Al-Kebulan. That's the next name I'm having for a baby if we get another baby. Shout out to my wife. The conversation continues here at the Africa Climate Summit.